Welcome, fans, to a special audio edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. And tonight, we are very pleased to welcome a man that has graced rings in Portland, Georgia, Jim Crockett Promotions, Florida, and a few other promotions in his storied career, Mr. Brett Wayne Sawyer. How are you tonight, Brett?
Doing great.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time out to appear on the podcast. I know this is one the fans have been anticipating. Like to
Cool.
start off with some general questions. Growing up, were you a fan of professional wrestling? And if so, what territories did you watch?
Yeah, I was. I like Don Morocco was my idol when I was growing up. So he was from Hawaii. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive, but yeah. My brother liked it a lot too, Buzz. So we sort of did it together.
And yes, we'll get into your tag team for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, we'll get into your storied tag team with Buzz in the interview.
Sure.
What made you decide to pursue professional wrestling as a career?
Well, I was busting tables at 14, 15, and going to school. And when I graduated, I decided to go. I got trained by Buzz and Ricky Steamboat, Matt Bourne, and I started out as a referee. And then about a year later, I did pro wrestling. Trained with those guys for almost 10 months. And the rest is pretty much history, I reckon.
Yeah, I noticed that you trained at a very young age, and wondered what that experience was like as such a young person to be trained by men like Steamboat, your brother, and Bourne. What was the training experience something that you found rigorous back then?
Yeah, I mean, I just really wanted to do it, and you get out of it what you put into it. And I always put 110% in. And and then the fans, they keep you excited, and they help you out tremendously. They don't really know that, but I'm sure that a lot of guys would tell you that, because if you don't have fans behind you, you got a problem.
Mm-hmm. Did you find that and we'll get into the school that you were involved with as a trainer later, but what were the major differences between your training experience and those of later years in terms of the whole smartening up process?
Well, I smartened them up. I mean, you smarten them up as you go, and I could watch guys. Like when I was in Florida with the wrestling school there, I'd had 30, 35 students, and then you get a lot of dropouts, and then you know who's really wants it deep inside. And after 3 to 6 months of training, if they hadn't caught on, that's probably a warning that they never will. Because you either like it or you don't. I mean, a lot of like fans and people. Some people don't like pro wrestling, and some people love it. I mean, it's just what you want in life. But it's been tremendous for me.
Yeah, back then, especially, you hear the legends and icons speak about how you had to have a heart or a love for the business, and now we're seeing individuals get involved in pro wrestling for other reasons, be it fame, television exposure, and that sort of thing. And you hear that in terms of your assessment, if you didn't have the heart for it, then were you likely to last?
No, not at all. You hit the nail on the head. If you don't have the heart for it, because there was times I've wondered about what I was doing, and But you know, he was hardcore on me. Like one day I walked in and I seen paper bags in each corner, and I was like, "What the heck's that?" And he's like, "Well, you're gonna puke in every one of them," and I did. 100 backdrops, 100 hip tosses, 100 arm drags, and it was unreal. But it helped me down the road, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel that aspect of protecting the business and taking it seriously has been, obviously it's been lost because of, we're in the age of social media. Yeah. Where wrestlers, talk about their personal business, whatever, while supposedly, representing their character or whatever, even calling it a character. Do you feel that the business has suffered by the lack of protection in the modern era?
Oh, tremendously. Yeah. A lot of guys just tell you what they know and what they got out of it. And really, when you break into pro wrestling, I mean, the way I was trained, it's personal, and the fans are always right. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be out there. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. But some guys, I don't know. I don't like to talk about nobody, because it's just everybody never knows what other people's going through. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on briefly earlier about your tag team with your famous tag team with your brother Buzz. How did that come about in terms of, was that always the plan that you would be a tag, or
Well,
did it just sort of happen?
It happened, really, because when I trained and I was done, Buzz got me booked in Portland, Oregon, because I didn't want to go wrestle with him right away, because I thought everybody would think I was hanging on his coattail. Mm-hmm. So when I went to Portland, Oregon, nobody really knew I was Buzz's brother until the announcers told them. And I went as Hacksaw Sawyer for 6 years out there in Portland. And I loved Portland for sure. Don Owens was probably the best promoter I ever met. And the most honest promoter for sure. I mean, Don Owens he would help guys, and a lot of guys would take his kindness for a weakness, and like I never did. And me and him got along tremendously. And he helped me get my career started and took off, and I can't say enough good things about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that seems to be a commonality amongst all of the legends that I've interviewed. Shout out to John Rambo, who was on the Old School Shooters podcast in December. He really put over Don as well, and an interview I did a long time ago with Brian Adams did the same thing, which we'll get to next, your run in Portland, of which I'm a huge fan. But one of the questions that the fans submitted on Sunday to be answered, I'd like to pose to you now, and that's Buzz had a run in the WWF, I believe, as Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
Uh-huh.
What do you know how that happened, and why it was a relatively short run?
Well, I know exactly why. Buzz and Vince McMahon butted heads, and they got in a fight, and of course Buzz won. But after that, they didn't use him, that's for sure. And that's one reason it was so short. And I mean, there could be more to it than that. I'm sure there is, but Buzz was pretty straight up and stubborn. I mean, back in the early 80s, I mean, there was 40 territories, and if you didn't like something, me and him both would just get up and leave. They'd say, "Oh, you got to leave a 2-week notice." I said, "Well, they beat you for 2 weeks."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's different for everybody. I love the business, and I mean, it got me through many years of my life, and couldn't be something better, to be honest with you.
So,
a lot of people got jobs putting on roofs and stuff like that. You're out there getting in front of thousands of people. It's different.
Absolutely. You said that Buzz and Vince Jr. got into a fight. Was that an actual physical altercation or just a verbal one?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Sure was.
Wow.
Yeah. they butted heads real quick. And
that's really interesting because a lot of people talk about the Kevin Kelly Nails physical altercation with Vince, but the one with Buzz is not as well known for some reason.
No, I don't know why they kept it under the covers, but they did. That's for sure.
Yeah, can't see Vince Jr. coming out on top on that one.
They did. You got money like Vince McMahon. I don't knock him because he did a lot for pro wrestling, even though he's got some weird stuff about him, that's for sure. I mean, when your own wife says she caught somebody with the man and brother caught him with the woman, that's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on the legacy of promoter Don Owens, and one of the facets of that promotion, Portland Wrestling, is the atmosphere at the Portland Sports Arena, which I believe was a converted bingo hall. A lot of fans look back on that, including myself, as some of the best TV. And just want your opinion on that venue as well as the atmosphere there that everybody still talks about to this day.
To be honest with you, it was an atmosphere that I never worked for any other promoters. Don Owens, everywhere he went, people respected him, and Elton Owens too, his brother, and he always run shows in Eugene, Oregon. And they both were great guys. I reckon Don Owens' father was a promoter.
Yes.
But you got to be a promoter like that. You really don't. When you go see another promoter, I tell you, it's like day and night because Don Owens, they don't come people. I can tell you that. 37 years of wrestling, yeah. Big difference.
So between 1982 and 1984, you won the heavyweight championship 4 times and the tag team championship 5 times. You've had so many memorable opponents there, working against Rip Oliver, Buddy Rose, and Matt Bourne. Can you discuss the highlights of that run?
Yeah, it was tremendous. To be honest with you, it was an adrenaline rush that I don't think I'll ever do again, that's for sure. And getting in front of 20,000 people or 30,000 or even 5,000, it's just something that gives you energy and I don't know, it's hard to explain, but everybody wanted to be a pro wrestler. I used to watch it when I was 8 years old, and me and my brother got hooked on it, and shit, the rest was history. And he couldn't do it without the fans, that's for sure.
During this time frame, did you prefer working as a singles or a tag?
Well, they put me in a lot. They put me in a tag with Rocky Johnson, and then my other tag team partner was they gave me a couple of them, and then Tom Pritchard, then me and Marty Jannetty, me and Tom Pritchard, and them was some of the best ones. And then they stick you with a couple of strangers, see how you guys work together. So sometimes it's not the same adrenaline rush, but it's always good for sure.
Many fans today still talk about your matches against Ric Flair on television and your general experiences working with him for the World Heavyweight Championship. What are your memories of that individual as an opponent?
Ric Flair, I respect him 110%. I hear people knock him all the time, but you don't wear his shoes, and he did draw a lot of money, and when everybody was getting paid, he didn't get paid like the other wrestlers. He got paid like Andre the Giant. He'd get 10% of the crowd. And he always wanted to help you in the ring. I wrestled him over 100 times in Oregon in 6 years. And, he puts you over if he liked you. And me and him had some great matches. You can go on YouTube and pull them up. Hacksaw Sawyer or Brett Wayne Sawyer, and they'll pop up. But this matches of me and him, me and Andre the Giant, and he's one of the nicest wrestlers you'll ever meet, would have ever met. I mean, I take him to towns and haul him around, and he broke my sheet, and I went to Don Owens. He said, "Go ask him for the money." I was like, "No, you told me to drive him around. I'm getting my money from you." But he was just joking with me.
The one of the fan questions that came in is, do you know that? Oh, sorry, this was from the King of Connecticut, my co-host in the Old School Shooters program podcast, and he wants to know: do you know that Buzz faced the Beast Dan Severn at high school nationals back in the day and was barely outpointed by Dan?
Now say that again.
The King of Connecticut wants to know: do you know that Buzz faced the Beast Dan Severn at high school nationals back in the day and was barely outpointed?
Oh, I didn't know that, to be honest with you.
Well, that just goes to show what a amateur wrestler he was.
Oh, he was, when he was in 9th grade, I was in 8th grade. He wrestled 12th graders and pinned them in 30 seconds.
Wow.
So every time I tried to get in like 9th grade, they put me up a couple notches just because I was his brother, but I wasn't as good as he was, I can tell you that.
And you and Buzz moved to Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1983 and defeated the Young Road Warriors for the National Tag Team Championship. Do you have memories of that match in particular, or facing them?
That was probably one of my best money makers when the Road Warriors. That was good money. That was a 2-year angle, and we went all over the United States and went to Puerto Rico too with them. And everywhere we went, we pretty much sold out, and we made a lot of money. And they're both deceased now. But they were great guys. I mean, I hear people knock them, but you knock anybody if you want to, and it's just a waste of time, I would think. But some people don't think like that. So.
Did you find working against Hawk and Animal to be overly stiff at the time? We hear that a lot, especially when they were starting out.
You know what? They broke my wrist, and that pissed me off. But they were stiff. I mean, there's no doubt. But it's better than throwing a punch and missing a guy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way it is in pro wrestling. You got to take a few bumps. I mean, it's entertainment, but there's a lot of adrenaline flows in your body, and a lot of guys, if they want to call a high spot or like drop down, hip toss, drop kick, they'll yell at the crowd in Carney, and they'll be calling a high spot for the other guy to do. That throws people off. But so it was always exciting, that's for sure.
So after a successful run in Southwest Championship Wrestling, you and Buzz went to Jim Crockett Promotions in 1985, and a lot of fans are still talking about the time you lost a loser leaves town cage match to the Midnight Express. Do you have any recollection of the story behind this program?
Not really, but Midnight Express, I didn't really like him a lot. I mean, they do what they got to do, and they can draw money. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't have no problems with him at all. I hear guys getting on, knocking him, but you know, it's a waste of breath, to be honest with you. And it's like when people knocking dead people. It's like when Buzz passed away. It just pissed me off to no end.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. It's pro wrestling, and it's entertainment, and people love gossip.
Did you feel your styles clashed, or what was the sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, how did the finish come about, and who was going over, etc. And did you feel there was a bit of a styles clash there between yourself and Buzz and the Express, that version?
Oh yeah, big time. But Buzz was stiff as hell too. So I mean, I was probably the only one who wasn't stiff. But I mean, after they broke my wrist, I started getting stiff. I can tell you that. But we did make some good money with them for 2 years, and I mean, they are great workers. And it's all about making money and drawing a crowd and putting asses in the seat, and that's what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question that was submitted was: Do you have thoughts on the Joe Rogan video interview with the Undertaker that went viral when he talked about Buzz stretching him and allegedly taking his training money?
Well, the last interview I did, we got into that, and I told him, I was like, listen, I was there. What he did is, it wasn't Buzz didn't show up. He didn't show up for 2 weeks because Buzz, before he left the last time, he didn't come back for a couple weeks because Buzz stretched him because he got cocky and tried to hurt one of the guys. But Undertaker, it's like, what's his name? He was talking shit about him too. Arn Anderson said he knocked his tooth out. Well, Buzz, how he knocked his tooth out, and he knocked it out in Florida. He got a new Porsche and he wrecked it. And when he wrecked it, his head hit the steering wheel, and that's how his tooth got knocked out. But Arn Anderson was telling everybody he knocked it out.
Wow.
I thought, oh my God. But I told him how I felt. That's all.
Fair enough. You wrestled in '85 for the Kansas City based promotion Heart of America, and you won the NWA Central States Heavyweight Championship, a prestigious title at the time. What are your thoughts on working this territory?
It was different. That's where I met Marty Jannetty, and I liked it out there in Kansas City. I mean, we had great crowds, great people, great fans. Promoters were great. I mean, that was a good time for sure. I sort of forgot about Kansas City.
How did they How did the booker come to the conclusion that they would put that strap on you?
It sort of shocked me when they did it because when I got there, I wasn't real happy with the way things was going. And I told them if things didn't perk up, I was going to have to go back to Portland, Oregon. And they decided to drop a belt to me, and I reckon a couple other guys was promised it. The promoter does what a promoter wants to do, so there's no reason to argue with him because you're going to lose anyway. So I always went with the flow as much as I could. Now, when they want you to do jobs, like I was telling you earlier, if you're leaving the territory and you stay for 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to do jobs for 2 or 3 weeks because you're leaving their territory. And there was 40 of them. Like, it's nothing like that nowadays, you know what I'm saying? You got Vince McMahon and you got Dusty Rhodes' sons that's open up a business. And, I can only think of New Japan Pro Wrestling and Puerto Rican Wrestling. They're all still going, but I don't know what. I heard Vince was going to sell I heard he sold it to business in Florida. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it'll come to me.
Disney? Disney?
What's the name of that business?
Disney was one of the rumored buyers. Yeah.
Disney World. Is that true? Did they bought them out?
No, there were rumors earlier that they had sold to a Saudi Arabian investment group, but the WWE is still being prepared for sale or marketed for sale, depending on what report you want to believe. But no, Disney apparently has not bought WWE at this time.
They did, huh?
They haven't. No.
They paid Vince a lot of money, I bet. I can tell you that.
Well, whoever does buy it, read today or the day before that Vince is looking for $9 billion.
9 billion?
Billion, yeah, with a B.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. 9 billion. Wow.
9 billion. So yeah, it's definitely been a profitable, which I was going to ask you this at the end, but I'll skip to it now since we're kind of segueing to it. What are your thoughts on the business today of professional wrestling in light of the death of the territory system? Do you feel it's, I think I know the answer for this, but do you feel it's better for wrestlers and fans, or is it worse?
I would say it's worse. I mean, what would you say?
Well, if you look historically at the number of people that were employed in the business back in the territory days and the money that was being made, and compare it to now, yeah, it's not even a question that the death of the territories was not a good thing for folks.
Yeah, I mean that was sad. 40 territories, and what it was these promoters get awful greedy. I mean, and they don't want to pay pro wrestlers what they should have got paid. I can tell you that. I mean, I remember wrestling for Cowboy Bill Watts with Buzz in the tag team once, and we both wrestled together with some guys just doing a job for us, and he got $3,000, and he shorted me 50 or 500, and I thought, what the hell? And I went to him, and he's like, oh, well, your brother's this, and I was like, listen, we both went out there as a tag team, and you're paying him this much, $500 more than you paid me. It was more. I can't remember if it was 500 or 1,000, but it was just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But I got over it.
Yeah, and if you listen to specifically Jim Cornette's podcast, he talks about the payoffs that they received in the 80s, and in today's money, it's astronomical. Whereas, yeah,
it's unreal.
Yeah, unreal.
Everybody, when I meet people, that's the first thing they tell me. Well, Brett, why didn't you make money like that? Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I mean, that was unheard of.
Mm-hmm. So in 1986, you competed in the prestigious Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup for tag team competition. Can you tell us about your memories of working in Crockett at that time, as well as your experience in the tournament that is still looked back again fondly by fans?
Yeah, I had a good time. Memories last forever, and I did a lot more than people really know. I mean, I stayed so busy on the road, traveling 24/7, going from. People say, oh, they wouldn't drive over 200, 300 miles. We used to drive 400 or 500 because I was like, well, don't you fly after 300? I was like, that's your dreaming. Mm. But, I mean, now, like 2010, I mean, they get outrageous money. I mean, they blow us away. I mean, we'd be tickled to death, get a couple grand a night, and these guys are getting 100,000. It's like Hogan now. Every time he goes to WWE and does an interview, wrestles, his new wife is a lawyer, and she gets him $1 million for every appearance. Wow. And somebody told me that he got paralyzed. Is that true?
Well, they're saying that that he has, he's had so many back surgeries that he's having lingering mobility issues from, dropping the leg. Who would have thought back in the day that finisher would be so right. Devastating, right?
That's right. That was his finishing deal. Mm. And Hogan, he lived close to St. Petersburg. That's where I used to live in West Virginia. And I grew till I was 10. Then we moved to Florida, stayed there, and grew up, went into pro wrestling. And I don't remember. I mean, it all happens. I mean, it's crazy. Sit back and think about it. And tagging with Andre the Giant, wrestling Flair time after time. And I mean, Mid Flair we had some great matches. Sometimes we'd do an hour of Broadway. I mean, it was unreal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he knows how to put guys over. He knows how to work. And you got to listen to guys like him, and you go a long ways.
Yeah, and a lot of fans have commented. I mean, we touched on that previously, but the hardcore fans of Portland wrestling talk about what a perfect baby face you were at that time. What elements of the persona that you brought to the table made you such an effective baby face in Portland?
I always respected the crowd. I always looked at the crowd. I always talked to the crowd. Even when I was in there wrestling, or I had a tag team partner wrestling, I would work the side of the wrestling ring, up and down, up and back, get the people going. That way you'd help your buddies like Marty Jannetty, people like that, get them going and get the people going and get the crowd going. So they have a lot to do with what goes on in pro wrestling. Little do they know, because they're the ones that gets people's adrenaline going. And just to look out and see a crowd of people and chanting your name is a high you can't buy. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, and I was blessed. I know that. And it's you got to thank God for a lot of things you do in life, because He's got a lot to do with it.
For sure.
That's for sure.
And a lot of people talk about how skilled Ricky Morton was at selling, but that was something that you particularly excelled at, and seems to be missing a lot in today's product for the most part. Why do you think that selling and that emoting that you're talking about is such an important part of a white meat baby face?
Well, a lot of guys would complain about, you want to start beating on me and this and that. Well, let me tell you, if you go out there and have, say, a 30-minute match, and 15 minutes in it, if you ain't calling high spots or drop kicking or doing some extraordinary looking moves to keep these people in the crowd concerned, I mean, you got a problem. But if you keep them entertained and look at them and talk to them, and they'll talk right back to you, before you know it, you got half of the arena, if not more, on your side. You can barely hear. I mean, you can't hear it because they're so loud. And that makes you feel good, and it gets your adrenaline flowing. I mean, it's just unreal. And they like to see action, and you can't just lay around in a headlock. You got to get the people in the palm of your hand and keep them there. When you lose them, you got a problem, and you'll know it.
Which seems to be that emotional connection between the wrestler and the crowd seems to be unreal. Yeah, it's unreal, and it's what those of us of a certain vintage brought us to the table to make us interested in the business, and seems to be missing. Yeah. Rick Brooks, friend of the show, is asking you, Brett, how many different territories did you work in besides Portland, the whole gamut, and what was your favorite?
I would have to say Portland, Oregon, for sure. No doubt in my mind. I spent 6 years there as Hacksaw Sawyer, and I would go back and forth when Buzz was booking in Atlanta, and that's how we ended up tagging. And it's really hard to explain, but at the same time, it's just it's when you get used to that crowd, chanting your name, and you really respect the people more. I mean, I know a lot of guys that didn't respect them, and they got over like a fart in church. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. You just, I always had a good relationship with them, especially in Oregon. But my favorite town was Oregon, and this nobody could compete to them. And I mean, Don Owens was tremendous promoter, and Elton Owens. But it's also got to do with the crowd. But it's not hard to get them involved, and they like to feel part of. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, just talking to them, it helps them tremendously. And even walking up and shaking a couple people's hands. I mean, quick, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
When they're sitting in ringside or a couple seats back. But I was blessed, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God was looking out for me because I never had it. Really, I mean, I broke a wrist and a couple ankles twice, and drop kicks, but besides that, I didn't get too many injuries.
Yeah.
Got a bad back, but that's about it.
So in 1987, you and Buzz did a tour of Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling. How was that experience for you, and what struck you as different from the North American experience?
Oh my God, that was something. I tell you, I went there after that. I've been there about 7 times, and I can tell you, you did your homework. But I really, really liked it. I mean, you want to talk about stiff. Japan, that's how they work. They don't pull the punches. They don't know. They're stiff as hell. And wow. I mean, I can't explain to the fans or you how stiff that they were.
Mm-hmm.
The money there, you can go there for 5 weeks and make 80 grand. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, you earned that 80 grand. Everybody's like, oh, you could work 2 years to make that. I was like, shit. It was, wow. I mean, I would have never did none of this if I hadn't trained with Buzz and them. But that training definitely paid off. All the puking I did, complaining probably, and I was complaining to myself. I'd never tell them. But I just, even though if they'd tell me take 100 hip tosses, I mean, I did them, believe me, 100 backdrops, 100 drop kicks. I mean, I was good at drop kicks, and the only reason I was good is I trained so much and did so many, I mean, thousands. I mean, why? I don't know, but I got it down pat, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I can still drop kick.
Wow, that's incredible. A fan is asking about your recollection of Buzz's supposed, well, I guess it was his career ending injury when he shattered his ankle, and what his thought process was then in terms of making a comeback.
He was worried, that's for sure. He about lost his foot. He had a big problem there, and it done broke his wrist too. And I don't know. Buzz was, I mean, he died at 32, and that was about 30 years ago. And he lived. I knew he wasn't going to let. I mean, I've lost 4 of my brothers, and I thank God every day when I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew he wouldn't last long because he was just, I don't know, you live fast, you die fast. That slowed me down a lot, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm. And a tribute to his legacy that fans still talk about him so much today.
It's hard to believe Buzz was just crazy. I mean, people either liked him or they didn't like him. But he had a big heart, that's for sure. He definitely had a big heart.
Wanted to ask you about your run in Florida in '89, where you teamed with Jimmy Backlund, who became Jimmy Del Rey as the Playboys, and held the Florida tag straps.
Yeah, we sure did. Boy, he did more work than any guy I've ever talked to, that's for sure.
Well, I try. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it down. Oh, that's great. You do it. I mean, you put a lot of work in that stuff, that's for sure. And I enjoyed Florida, because my parents lived there. And I like working for Eddie Graham, and then Mike Graham. And Eddie was great, too. But when I went down there, he had shot himself. He owed the IRS money, and I reckon he got money off some type of business for people that's dying or something, and it was embezzlement. Mm-hmm. So he went down to the sports arena and took a gun with him, a pistol, and went in the arena and got in the ring and shot himself in the head. and didn't even kill him. He dropped the gun, picked it back up, and shot himself a second time.
Oh, wow.
And
Amazing.
then 2-3 years later, his son did the same thing. And then Mike Graham, when he killed himself, his son tried to kill himself.
Tragic.
Crazy.
Tragic.
That was some crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't talking about problems. They had a lot of problems there in Florida, that's for sure.
What about your team with Jimmy Del Rey, who went on to have quite a successful couple of runs as one of the heavenly bodies? Did you find him to gel really well as a tag partner?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy and me, we was both pretty much high flyers. He was a nice guy. I mean, I don't know if is he still living?
No, he passed approximately 2016, I want to say. A fan will correct me, but yeah, he's passed on.
Really? What did he die from?
I understand it was heart failure.
Oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, huh?
No, 2016-ish, in and around there.
2016.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Wow, I wondered about that. Yeah, Jimmy was a great guy. I couldn't say nothing bad about him. I mean, he was a good partner. We had it down pat, that's for sure. Dusty was there booking for a while too, and when he came in, oh boy, he pissed me off. I like Dusty, but man, he got mad because with his son, he was wanting to break him in pro wrestling. Well, he was going to high school and he didn't make the good enough grades, and I reckon so me and Steve Kern trained Dustin Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
And Dusty, who trained my son? Oh, Brett. So he gave me a name of the bubblegum kid. And that sort of pissed me off, but I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to get this over. And I had a big old bucket of bubblegum every time I went out to the ringside and stuff, and I threw it to the fans, and usually the kids, but I throw it to the fans too. And I made something out of it. I mean, didn't like doing it, but I did it just because you can't really go in bossing people around. I don't care who you are. I mean, you got to be humble in life and be willing to work with people and get you much farther.
And at least he didn't want you to wear polka dots, right?
I'd had a problem with that probably. Polka dots, that's a good one.
But he still got it over. So big respect to the late Dusty Rhodes. Yep. In the late 1980s, you and Buzz trained Ken Shamrock, Vince Torelli, I believe, to wrestle. Can you talk about this process of taking a shooter and breaking him in?
There was two of them. Shamrock was damn good, I can tell you that. And I'll tell you, Buzz liked him a lot, and because they were pretty much sort of like, not really, but they had some. They had a few things in common, but he was a hell of a shooter, and boy, he did that MMA fighting, and he was a tough guy,
mm-hmm.
and he loved his kids. And I'm pretty sure he's still living. I'm not positive.
Yeah, he's still alive. I think he's retired from fighting, but is still around doing seminars and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he'd be a great guy to do seminars, because I tell you, I remember because I had a wrestling school in St. Petersburg, and Buzz would fly me out to California every other week, and I'd fly in, out, and then go work for Florida Championship Wrestling. I stayed busy. I tell you, I'm retired, and I sort of think I might make some type of comeback. I don't know.
Oh, the fans would be very interested in that. Do you think it's having trained an MMA competitor, do you think that's an impediment, or is it an advantage to, because we've seen a lot of MMA guys, not a lot, and girls, Ronda Rousey, Dan Severn, Brock Lesnar.
There is a lot.
Yeah. Do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage? Yeah.
I I think it's an advantage big time because those people, I mean, it's hard enough to learn how to be a pro wrestler. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, if it was easy, everybody'd do it. I mean, if you get somebody that's serious about training and instead of had a career, and you know, I ain't trying to brag or nothing, but I did okay. I mean, I could have did better, but I could have did a lot worse. But I'm still happy. I'm not ashamed of nothing, and I put it all in God's hand. That's for sure.
Well, obviously, a lot of the fans still remember you and the legacy that you have imparted. So you definitely did something right. Turning to 1991, you wrestled briefly for World Championship Wrestling as Brett Wayne. How did this come about, and why was the tenure brief?
Well, I took a couple years off. I had a few problems with the IRS, and that'll back somebody up a while. I can tell you that. That's the only headaches I ever got from pro wrestling was the IRS.
As many did back in the day, right?
Big time. But you gotta do what you gotta do, and sometimes you get sidetracked. And I reckon I got sidetracked, and I had a problem with painkillers, and it was hard to get off of them. But I sure the hell did. I can tell you that. Probably the best thing I ever did.
So how did you get booked in WCW at that time initially? How did that come about, and did you have any expectations about how you're going to be used, or was it just kind of a catch as catch can thing?
Catch as catch can, that's for sure. You know, and so many guys, you don't realize it, but when you got like 40 guys and 50 guys in the dressing room, or just say 30, and they're all wanting to push, and they're all wanting to get put over, and none of them want to do a job, get beat. That's bullshit. It ain't gonna hurt you. I mean, I shouldn't even say nothing about it because I had a problem with it, to be honest with you. Especially when you were doing good, and then they want to make you do jobs. But you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, it's as long as the people was happy, and you had to be so happy. I mean, you got to move on. I mean, people, it's so easy to sit down and dwell about things, but you just got to keep moving forward. And I don't know. Like I said, I've lost my whole family, so I've seen what people go through, losing mother, father, wife. My wife passed away in 2016 from cancer. I mean, never smoked a day in her life.
My condolences.
You just never know what life's going to throw you. That's for sure. But that was probably the hardest thing I ever did. Was bury my wife.
Yeah, it's definitely touched us all. You retired in 1998. You know, young man still. What made you retire at that stage and stay retired?
Operation, and things just. I mean, my back was so. I mean, I don't know. I'd heard it over in Japan, and these guys were always trying to shoot shit like that. But the operation, it was nothing to do with wrestling. It was the doctor's fault. I don't know. They did 3 operations after they screwed up one, and you know, you don't recover from a back operation in 6 months. I mean, after a back operation, it's time consuming. That's for sure. Just to feel like I felt when I was 30 or 20. Boy, those days are way over.
A fan question wanted to know, given the fact that you worked in Georgia quite successfully, what is your opinion on Ole Anderson as a booker?
I think Ole Anderson was one hell of a booker. He gave me a nice push. Ole Anderson. I never begged him for nothing or asked him for nothing, but he just always put me over, and that's when him and Buzz were having feuds, and that's when they wanted to turn the Buzz babyface, and that's when we worked that angle with the Road Warriors, and it was year after year, everything would come up, pop up, like when the Road Warriors came. I mean, that was usually we didn't do 2-year runs, but with the Road Warriors, me and Buzz, we were in the United States with them and made some good money. And, I mean, they were stiff, I ain't gonna lie, but, you know, you can't be a little sissy and expect to get hurt in pro wrestling, because you are going to get hurt eventually, some way. I mean, even training, I mean, that's why now when you train people, you got to have them sign a damn waiver and get it notarized and do all this stuff just so you can't get these people are sue happy around. You know, everybody's trying to sue you or something. But it is what it is.
Rick Brooks is asking, who gave your brother the wrestling name Buzz Sawyer?
Jack Briscoe. Yeah. Jack Briscoe did. The Briscoes are the one that broke my brother into business. He started wrestling 2 years before I did. And when I trained for like 8-9 months, and then 9 months, and then I can't remember. That's another thing about being 62. You forget a lot.
Absolutely.
Oh, God. I mean, I've had like 30-some head concussions. That's what I know of.
So we're almost at the end of the hour, but I wanted to ask you, just as a general closing comment, we've talked about how the business, although, you know, very successful today financially, is not a better thing per se for wrestlers. But what are your thoughts on the lack of psychology in the spot fest that some major promotions are putting over, and a lack of storytelling per se that made all the fans interested?
Yeah. See, you hit the nail right on the head, because that is a problem. When you start doing things like that, and I mean, it's way overrated. They're not doing the right shit. I mean, it's just common sense. I mean, it's been going on since the 20s or 30s. Probably before that. I remember Don Owens telling me, I think his dad was, I don't know, they opened up in, I mean, it had to be 80 years ago. His dad was a promoter, wasn't he?
Don Owens, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, he was in the business for so many years, and he was the first promoter. I never knew promoters would rob you and stick you up and threaten you, but they will. But, you know, you got to either go with it, or if you go against it, it's always a problem. And going with it sometimes ain't as bad as it would have been. And I don't know, I always look at things and add God to it. It helps, that's for sure.
So
a lot of it, like you said, was way overrated and pushing too much. And the only person who was making money, like you said earlier, when we was wrestling in the early 80s, we didn't make the money they're making now. It was like day and night. I mean, wow, what a difference. And like, I hear people always down in Flair. How can you down somebody that's did what he did? I mean, we're all cocky at times, but I mean, that's how Ric Flair got over, and he could work. I can tell you, as a guy that was green when I started wrestling the Ric Flair, I about had a heart attack when Don Owens said, "Oh heck, you going to wrestle Ric Flair tonight?" And when I got in the ring, he got in my face and he says, "I think your brother would be happy." He was pretty funny. Yeah. And a hell of a guy. He put me over all the time, and he never put nobody over. But yeah, he did me on TV and everything, and I respected the hell out of him, and he knew it, and I still do.
Would that be the highlight of your career, or if not, what would be?
Yeah, that be honest with you, I hate to say it, but yeah, I don't hate to say it because I like Ric Flair a lot, and he's made a lot of money, and he's made a few mistakes. We all make mistakes, but hey, Ric Flair and pro wrestling, I rate him a 100. I mean, I give him an A+. He's taught me a lot. Man, I can't tell you how many guys I've trained. But Ric Flair is one hell of a guy. He's got a great personality. I mean, you're always going to have a problem with somebody. I mean, Ric Flair is 73 years old, healthy as could be. I mean, I heard he had a wrestling match a while back at 73 or 72.
Yeah, his last match, quote unquote, in July.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
A tag match with his son-in-law against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal.
How was that?
That's
wasn't too good.
well, for my own opinion, yeah, it probably shouldn't have happened, but other fans feel differently.
100%.
Yeah, other fans feel differently. But would you say that your matches against him was the highlight of your career?
Was what?
What was that the highlight of your career, or if not, I mean, as a worker, if not, what would be?
I had a good time with the Road Warriors. I mean, we had some bad times. Don't get me wrong, but we had a hell of a lot more good times than any bad times. And and tagging with Andre the Giant for 5 years off and on. And my brother and everybody I tagged with was nice people, so I don't have a problem. That's for sure. The only problem I got's with the Undertaker. I'd like to get in the ring with him and shoot.
Well,
that's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely has strong opinions about Buzz, but I mean, again, the fans are still talking about Buzz, still talking about yourself, and we definitely on the Great North Wrestling Podcast appreciate your time. So, in closing, do you have a message for the fans or anything you would like to promote, or people can contact you?
I'd like to leave my school number and just thank all my fans, and they're great people, and I'll see them again soon, I'm sure. But living in West Virginia and enjoying life, that's for sure.
Well, we'll be sure to take that information and include it in the description. But for now, I just want to say thanks very much, Brett, for your time, and always fascinating to talk to you and have you on the Hannibal TV. And as Rick Brooks points out, you worked with all the big stars of the era and were a memorable babyface for sure yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank the fans.
Well, fans, that's it. Another edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. Again, want to thank Brett, our guest, and we will see you next time. Take care.